what you're eating, but what's eating you, right? There's a reason on a soul level. So when your body wants something, when you hear an inner voice, there's actually a real reason on a spiritual level why it's happening. And this is where I want you to take those few notes that I said about looking at things from a fresh perspective, not in what you think you know. And trying to hear it and filter it through that. When a husband and a wife, when a man and a woman are attracted to each other, it's because on a soul level, they want to refill that light. The residual light, feminine energy, is trying to emerge. And the cup is trying to expand its reach. And so the two of them are very drawn to each other to refill darkness. Does that sound like intimacy to you a little bit? Because that's what it is on the soul level. But the husband and wife, and you see it in creation, if you read it, really the first being was man and woman as one. Only then were they separated. And therefore in Genesis, it says a man seeks out his wife like he's missing a limb. You're one on a soul level. And we're not comfortable with not being, but we don't interpret it like that. We interpret it like hunger, like sexual energy, like desire. That's all a byproduct. Of course we have pleasure. But it comes from a very, very essential need to be one, to go back to lack of self-awareness of ego and be able to lose myself in the other and become one. And the reason I start with this, even though it sounds very esoteric and it is very deep and there are many, many more details to it, is because it reframes what's going on between you and your husband. It reframes it exactly how the Torah intended. There's nothing holier than what happens between husband and wife behind closed doors. Because what's happening on that level is actually what this world needs in order to be whole and healed. You want to have a healed world and a happy world? You have to have a happy, wholesome. Nobody says, oh, I'm going to fix the world if my workplace is healthy. Healthy workplace, healthy world. Doesn't work like that. Your home, your secret place, your Kodesh HaKadoshim, that's how Talmud refers to it. Your bedroom is called the Holy of Holies. Just parenthetically, something interesting. In the times of the temple, everybody went to the mikvah before they would go into the temple. In fact, if you go to the southern excavations in Yerushalayim, you'll see that they dug up, there's mikvahs all around the base of the Temple Mount. Everybody would not dare step foot onto the mount if they weren't purified and in that state of connection. But we today don't have a temple, so this doesn't exist. The only place it still exists biblically is in our temple, our home. That's why a woman, before she steps into her Kodesh HaKadoshim, so before she's intimate with her husband, goes to the mikvah. It's an unbelievable power that we're able to still make a bracha, Asher Kedishanu B'Mitzvos V'Tzivanu, because we are still, the basic is on a certain level never destroyed because of our homes. So you start framing what's going on between husband and wife, and you see how the Torah looks at it. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is like wow, this is monumental. This is something like earth-shattering. And interesting, the fact that that's how a person can procreate is not the reason why we're being intimate. It's one of the reasons we're intimate, but not the only reason. We have a mitzvah to be intimate and to enjoy each other, whether we could get pregnant or not, whether we're older or not, whether we're already pregnant or not, no matter what. But the fact that we could get pregnant through this act is because we are like God in this moment. We reunited his divided lights. Once we reunite them, we go back to that sterling state of pre-world creation, and we become like God. We're literally reflecting Hashem's image in its totality, his oneness. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Your goal is to become one with your husband. There's no other act that makes you one, that puts you together in a way that you can't even define in regular terms. It's a very spiritual experience. And the key here is that every single halacha around this, every single detail around this, leads you to the fact that what the Torah is telling us is that what you're seeking, what you should be seeking, is connection. It's not like we get, and I'm going to go through the halachas of it soon, but you understand what I'm saying. But it's not like Hashem says, you know what? It's a necessary evil. You know, things we need to eat, we need to drink, we need to have relationships, whatever. Context of marriage, and in the context of not letting you have too much fun, I let it. No. That's not what Hashem is telling us. Hashem is telling us, I gave you a gift of reflecting me, oneness, bringing oneness back to this world, wholesomeness, with the one person that's the most important relationship in your life. Don't squander it. When you're together, everything should be focused on connection, thinking about the other person, celebrating the other person. When Adam and Chava were created, they had no shame, they had no self-awareness. They were intimate in the garden with animals watching, they were totally naked. It was a pure expression of wanting to be one. They didn't even know. That's the ultimate of being unaware. We think it's a compliment. We say, oh, you're so self-aware. But if you read the story, the way Kabbalah describes it, it's like not such a compliment in that context. Because why? I just want to pause here and explain this. The Rebbe explains this in great detail. He says, when you wake up in the morning, do you feel yourself? If you do, you're in trouble. You wake up, oh, my back is killing me. My ear, oh, I must have an earache. My head, I need Tylenol. My tooth, I probably need a root canal. You're not supposed to feel yourself. The problem is we do feel ourselves. Our knees hurt, our hips hurt, our head hurts. Shouldn't we feel ourselves? But a healthy person doesn't feel themselves. Isn't that interesting? Because when you're healthy, you're so connected, you don't feel yourself like a pack of bones. I feel my kidneys, my heart, my this. It's a problem. It's an unbelievable thought, very counterintuitive. So he says that was Adam and Chava. When they were created, they didn't feel themselves as separate entities. They felt themselves as a reflection of Hashem. They were totally not self-conscious. Their unity, their intimacy was totally a reflection of this deep desire on a neshama level to return the world to a place where Hashem is so obvious. That's what every time they were intimate. So you think they didn't have pleasure? They had the ultimate pleasure, but it was not based on my pleasure. And then when Adam was thrown out of the Garden of Eden, the shame that came with it, that now I am so self-aware, that I'm more worried about my pleasure than my wife's pleasure, that not every moment and breath I even have to think about that I should make sure I'm focused on her, and vice versa. He was guilt-ridden. How could something so beautiful fall so low? How could it be so selfish? So it starts giving you an idea what the Torah looks at intimacy, how it views those precious, precious moments between husband and wife, and why it gives us this amazing guidance that every single thing, it tells you the ideal. yes, there will be situations where you're not able to do all the ideal halachas that spells out. I'll discuss that a little bit. But in general, we're going to go through each one of them, how they're meant on an ideal level, for there to be total focus on each other, not on yourself, for you to have concentration just on the person in front of you, and for you to be able to not feel yourself, to be lost in this other person. And once you start viewing it like that, you start like looking forward to like, wow, I have such a possibility of connecting to the person that I'm married to. I have to just tell you a beautiful story that happened to me when I was just a brand new shulchan. 33 years ago, I was living in Manhattan. And a woman comes to me, she's getting married, and she wants me to teach her about the laws of mikvah. It's the first woman I ever taught. So I said to her, sure, let's go over the halachas. And I sat down with her and went through it. She was much older than me and much more experienced than me, trust me, in every way. And she was a secular Jewish Upper West Sider, actually. I lived on the East Side, Upper East, and she had become a Balas Tshuva. She was marrying a modern Orthodox Jew, and my husband was officiating. And that's how she found out about mikvah, and then I would educate her. So I taught her. She was very receptive, and we had a few great sessions, and she got married. But right before she got married, her last session, she said to me, Chanie, can you please explain to me about hair covering? I know that's not our topic tonight, but this story, you'll see why I'm sharing it. And I said to her, sure, I wasn't planning to, because I wanted her just to have the basics of like going to the mikvah. So I told her the reasons that I've learned. I'm still very new and young and wasn't that seasoned. And I shared with her a few beautiful things I'd learned in school about hair covering and how much blessing it brings to a family. And she said to me, Chanie, I think I'm going to try it. I don't think I'm going to start with a sheitel, but I'm going to wear a hat. I'll wear a baseball cap whenever I leave my house. I said, that's a great start. That's beautiful. 6 months later, I meet her. And I said, how's everything going? How's marriage? She says, amazing. Thank you. I've been doing mikvah, whatever. And I just want you to know, I never leave my house. I'm wearing a baseball cap, or like if I'm going somewhere more elegant, I'll wear a beautiful hat. I said, wow, that's amazing. Like, I'm so proud of you. She said to me, I never told you the full story, so I want to tell it to you now. And she said, I learned a very, very profound lesson that day. That's why I'm sharing this with you. She said, I never told you my background. She said, I grew up in a very, very dysfunctional home. It was a lot about, she wasn't specific, so it left up to my imagination. She said a lot about were crossed. And I felt very violated on many levels. And there was nudity, and that's the only thing she spelled out that a little child shouldn't see. And she said, I felt very damaged by everything that I went through. And to be honest, I couldn't sustain a relationship. Every time I got serious with someone, something happened. I didn't have the tools. She said, so I entered therapy. And I spent years in therapy working. And at the same time, I discovered my Judaism. And yeah, thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry. Which part of the story was that to? Went to therapy, and at the same time, she started rediscovering her Judaism, started studying, and she became Shomer Shabbat, etc. She said, when you explained to me the hair covering, the day after my wedding, when I woke up in the morning, and the first time I was going to step out of my house and I put on my hat, she said, I reclaimed the last piece of myself that was alive. Nothing I would have learned could have prepared me for that answer and could have given me that. It had to come from a place of someone that experienced deep loss, deep of innocence. And it taught me the lesson that the Torah never wants us to lose. So every mitzvah that the Torah gives us, and particularly the ones associated with such a deep personal subject as our sexuality, is there not to bind our hands, to limit us, It's there to protect us and the sanctity of the most special relationship that we have, the intimate relationships we have with our senses. So when you look through those perspectives, first of all, the gift that Hashem gave us.
Okay, so
that our intimacy could remain so holy and so untainted, so unselfish and so focused. Now you're thinking to yourself, well, I don't think that's always the case. But to have something to strive to, and to realize that that's not like, oh, I don't need to be that strict. I don't mean just when the Torah is there, literally to elevate us and to make sure that we know that we're reaching for the stars.
to take all this out.
And we all know, as married women, that the times that are most meaningful in our intimate life is not always the ones that we're being the most experimental, or it's the times when we feel most connected to our spouse. When you feel that deep connection. And that's what our goal is. That's the goal. Aware of them and respecting them. Everybody good so far?
Yeah.
Okay. I once heard something that just blew my mind. You ever notice when Jews daven, they shuffle? That means they shake. Well, Shanta said that tefillah, prayer, is our intimate moment with Hashem. And when you're intimate, nobody just stands still. There's movement. You're drawing yourself close to the other person. In tefillah, we're drawing ourselves close to Hashem. Look at a flame, and it never stops moving. It's always leaping. That's our neshama. It's trying to be one with Hashem. And on the, are you okay? And on a parallel, because we are husband and wife are a microcosm of Hashem and the Jewish people. So when you daven to Hashem, it's avodah, it's work, it's a relationship. You're being intimate with Hashem. So now look how we daven. We don't just daven. We just come home and jump into bed with the husband. Intimacy starts in the morning, maybe a day before, maybe a week before. It's a build-up. I just throw in some tidbits. Everybody has their own way of being flirtatious with their husband. But instead of, I shared this with someone yesterday. I hope anything I say might be repetitious. Someone has spoken to me before, but one woman tells me, my husband doesn't answer my texts. And when I ask him, he says, like, I'm working. So I said, how often do you text him? She says, oh, multiple times an hour. I'm like, how pity on the guy. Text them. It's important you text somebody, but otherwise they're working. What are they supposed to do? Sit there and answer your text multiple times an hour? Doesn't mean he doesn't love you. I said, but once in a while, send him a nice, flirtatious little text. Because then he can't wait to come home to you. Intimacy starts way before you come to the bedroom, especially for women. So you can also lead the way in a very feminine way. You can't be biting and like sarcastic because you're really looking for attention. And same vice versa, but I'm not talking to the men, I'm talking to the women now. Okay. So this reminds me that there is a halacha that should be dark when you're intimate. And it should not be this bright either. We go somewhere between. It doesn't mean that it has to be pitch dark from the second you walk into your bedroom. You're allowed to have some lights, but when you're supposed to be pitch dark is by the moment of entry, right? So when I was telling you about tefillah, think about how we done it. I mean, many of us do. We just open the dinner and we mumble and we're finished, But ideally, if you think about Chassidim of old and how we emulate, is they would learn Chassidus first. Why? Because Chassidus open their mind to the relationship that's about to happen, the loving relationship that exists between God and Jew. You're supposed to think and set the stage for the fact that you and your husband have a relationship. It's not just like a transactional thing. There has to be a little prelude to the fact that we care about each other. And then look at the davening before you get to the Amida. There's the paragraphs of we're praising Hashem and we're building up and we're discussing because it's the same idea that you're building up. And during that time, even though you're supposed to be focused on your husband, you're not supposed to be thinking about other people and a lot of the halachas, but it's not the same like the actual time of climax or entry, when then it's supposed to be dark and you're supposed to be totally naked and you're supposed to be under the covers. Ideally, we know that there's times it's not, and it's not practical, but I'm talking about an ideal situation of connection. The Torah is telling us what's your ideal way to connect. Think how less self-conscious you were when those lights were off. Nobody saw your expressions, can't see if you're uncomfortable, you can't see. It's just so you could just be free. It's like when you or your children are going out on a date. We try the first few dates should be at night, because it just naturally lends itself to a more intimate conversation, to getting to know each other on a more intimate level. A daytime date always throws everybody for a little loop. It's good. You want to see what that's like, but there's a different energy. So when the Torah tells you that it should be dark, ideally, it's telling you because you really have zero distraction. It's not about anything but how you're feeling, because there's nothing else between you. Torah's not saying, like, you have all these limitations and here's a checklist. Let's copy this checklist, keep it on your night table, and make sure you do the checklist. That is the equivalent of an alien coming to Earth with a checklist. He was sent by his master alien and says, can you find out what human marriage is like? He comes to your house, he's invisible, you don't know he's there, and he's watching you and your husband. Cleaners, he does. Cooking, she does. Driving the kids to school, he does. Washing the dishes, she does. Whatever your division of responsibility. Taking out the garbage, he comes back, he says, this is what a husband and wife do. What's he missing? He only saw a very external existence. He didn't see anything about a marriage. He saw a bunch of transactions. He's missing the heart and soul of marriage. When you go into the bedroom and you're following a checklist, did I wash my hands? Did I, you're missing the point. It's a relationship between you and your husband. The fact that you lock your door is practical, brilliant. How could you relax and have an intimate relationship with your husband if you're worried that your kid is walking into the room? Or your mother-in-law? You know what I mean? So those are very obvious, but you should know that if you look at every single halacha, you see that they're all focused on the most important part, which that the Torah is concerned for the connection that a husband and wife have. It's an amazing thing. And if, again, you're thinking to yourself, unfortunately, we've lost that connection, or unfortunately, we never generated that connection, it's never too late. There are a lot of things a person does that at first your husband might look at you and say, hold on, who's still my wife? Put you there. Because he's I'm just using him as an example. It could again be the other way. He's unused to your behaviors. When he sees that they're consistent, and vice versa, if you see that he does certain things, suddenly you start trusting, wow, maybe things could be different. And I just want to tell you, it only takes one little change to change all the dynamics. You don't have to change a million things. You just have to change one thing. How far is east from west? Just have to turn around. That's all. One little change will change the dynamics in your marriage. Thank you. Thank you. Water is great. And therefore, with my metaphor about THLA, or actually parallel, think about it. How the halachas get stricter as you're davening. When you stop talking. Now let it talk distractions and take our shamar and Shemona Esrei, you're not even allowed to look at it siddur. Think about the halachas. When a couple is, before that, and they're foreplay, and they're warming each other up, and they're focusing on each other, yeah, a lot of the halachas apply, but as you're at the Amida, the climax of Tefillah, we don't even look at our siddur. Our focus has to be so strong on Hashem, right? When a husband and wife are intimate at the climax, they don't even look for a word. Of course, if something's uncomfortable, something happens about it, but I'm just saying what the ideal is. Why? Because it's literally the climax of that connection. It's beyond words. It is so deep, it is beyond words. It doesn't mean not allowed to speak up until then, but I'm just giving you another example of what I mean by deep connection. You might say, oh, that doesn't feel like deep connection. Right. Try it with the intent that Hashem meant it. Communication is very important. We're going to get to that.
No, so
But
there's
the wrong
index
time to
cards.
communicate is while you're in middle.
There are index cards and everyone has the pen, so you're encouraged to write down questions. We'll take them at the end and we'll move them up, yeah.
But maybe we could pass the index cards around. If you have questions, pass them up because I am going to answer them.
Even on your paper from here.
Interesting fact, I just want you to know, I read in Aryeh book, Waters of Eden, that when Adam realized that shame of being thrown out of the garden, he sat down at the river and he cried. And Aryeh points this out, it's amazing, it's based on a medrash. When you read Genesis, the story of creation, you see it describes the beautiful garden. It says that there were 4 rivers that flowed from Eden, to the north, the south, east, and the west. You read the whole Genesis, you will never see those rivers mentioned again. But the Medrash tells us that when Adam was thrown out, he sat down on one of those rivers that were flowing from Eden. And he realized to his deep shame what had happened. And that his only connection back to that state of oneness is the river. That if he immerses himself in the river, he'll feel the energy of Gan Eden. And that's where our first source for mikvah is, from this medrash, that when we immerse in natural rainwaters, we are able to be swallowed up by, like I call it, the womb of Hashem. We can go back into Hashem's energy and tap into that state, the pre-chet state, a state of oneness, of yichud, and bring it to your marriage. And that's why these laws are not called laws of female purity. They're called laws of family purity. That through you, you can bring this level of holiness, this level of oneness, this level of unity, yichud, to your whole family. It's interesting that a woman is quiet under the chuppah by this. By the way, the guy doesn't say a big party. He has like 5 words. You know, the kid comes home from school and he tells his mother, I got a part of the play. And she says, then really, what are you going to be? He says, I'm going to be the father. Her face falls. She said, you go right back and tell them you want a speaking part. It's not like the guy says too much under the chuppah, but the girl says nothing. So the question is, like, why didn't she at least say, I do, I agree, something? And I read this in a footnote of a Sixth of the Rebbe. He says it's because when she gets married, they activate this union. Before that, she represents the feminine energy, it's floating somewhere here. He represents the masculine energy. And the two of them have nothing to do with each other. So they're just this abstract energy. This is just an empty vessel. Like neither of them is producing anything. You put the two together, suddenly this energy has somewhere to go. It flows through her channel. And what could hypothetically, not every time, come out of that? A child. It's unbelievable. When you put these two energies back together, you become like God and you create. So what happens under the chuppah? This energy is activated. The two of them are united. Her finger goes into the ring. She encircles him. The two of them are, Hashem is covering both of them. They're returning to a state of oneness. And what do you do when you are a conduit for Hashem's unlimited light? The last thing you do is say it. It's an equivalent of me standing in the presence of standing in the presence of Einstein. And I'm going to give my opinion on physics. Yes, I want to say something about quantum mechanics. Would I even open my mouth in front of Einstein? Ridiculous. We're going to open our mouth when we're about to be the floodgates for Hashem's Ayin Zach into our home and into the world. The best thing you can do, the most powerful thing you can do, is allow yourself to be a free flow. I want to show you something very interesting to help you understand this concept. My brother, some of you know him, Simon Jacobson, Rabbi Simon Jacobson, the author of Towards a Meaningful Life. Yes, I am a Jacobson. Early, I make sure everybody knows that. And so when the Rebbe used to bring for hours and hours and hours on a Shabbos afternoon, there were no recordings because it was Shabbos. How do we have recordings written down, all the talks that ever spoke for 40 years? Because there was a group of guys, they're called Chanie. They would sit by her bringing and they would remember everything that ever said. They would review it amongst themselves, and after Shabbos, they would write it down. That's how we have records of everything that ever said. So my brother Simon was one of these people. So he once described to me the secrets. Because yes, you have to have a good head, you have to have a good memory, but still, try it. We could barely remember like a name we heard 2 minutes ago. So he told me the secret was actually pausing your brain. Stop thinking. Stop being an active participant. Because you know when you listen to someone, you're like, oh, that's cute, I'm going to use that. I mean, I like that joke. I have to remember to tell that. And then you start thinking, oh, I read something and it reminds me of the same thing she's saying. You start like, your mind starts absorbing it and integrating it. But then you don't remember what I said, what you thought, what you read, and that's fine. That's how you're making your information. But if you're supposed to be the one that's remembering in precision what the Rebbe said, it can't be mixed up with your own thoughts. So they literally have to empty their thoughts and just allow the Rebbe's words to come through. Don't think about it. Don't process it. Don't try to understand it. I don't know. That's a great question, but it is a concept in Chassidus, so it must have been. It's called the concept of being a receiver, a mekabel, the feminine energy. It's the reason why physically we can give birth and why spiritually we can conceive, because we can receive something without blocking it. We receive the seed from our husband, but we give back a child. Again, I'm talking physically, but it also means that that's happened spiritually when a woman receives from her husband. We are receiving an energy and we're giving back something that like so brand new and so creative. Where did you find it? So when they would listen to the Rebbe, they wouldn't process it until afterwards. And that reminded me of that's what happens, that feminine energy under the chuppah. And that's what happens when you're intimate. Because it's like a cycle. You receive pleasure, but you're also giving pleasure. By you receiving pleasure, it gives your husband a lot of pleasure. He doesn't just want to enter you and climax, and then you're just like left hanging. There's a mitzvah in the Torah to satisfy you. It's actually a mitzvah on every husband to satisfy his wife. It says it in the tzubah. It's read, like Verleah reminded me, it's read under our chuppahs. It's an incredible, incredible. It's actually grounds for divorce. If a person's sexual needs are not being met. No, don't run to the rock. Figure it out first. So I wasn't going to yet start with Makabel and Mashpia, but I'm going to touch on it now. How are we doing with time? Am I still part of my presentation or?
Yes.
Okay, good. How much time? Where are we up to? Okay, great. So remember how I said before that when Hashem created the world, it's just him. But then he split man and woman separately. But you see that this happened in all levels of creation. The upper waters, the lower waters, the sun, the moon. So many things got split and lost their connection to their essence. And it's up to mankind, man and woman, through our intimate relationship to heal the whole world through us. So when we're even doing the mitzvah calendar, and that's the first mitzvah that Hashem gave Jewish people. So it seems a little strange that of all the mitzvahs in the Torah, he told us how to count our calendar. Go according to the moon, not the sun. But he's telling us I married you. That was the mitzvah. He took us out of Egypt, brought us to Mount Sinai to marry us. The first thing he did was make us the feminine energy, the receiver. And he was the masculine energy, the giver. So the first mitzvah in the Torah is the moon and the sun, counterpoint to the moon. The Jewish people are the moon to Hashem's sun. It's an unbelievable setting of the stage, romantic setting of the stage. Because do you know the story of the sun and the moon? Very succinctly, I'll tell it to you. If you look in Genesis, it says Hashem created on the fourth day of creation 2 great luminaries. The big luminary, the sun, the small luminary, the moon. So the Medrash asks, what do you mean the big and the small? You just said 2 big ones. And it tells this very strange story that the moon came to God and complained. Why are there 2 kings in the sky? You can't have 2 kings. It has to be one and a smaller one. So Hashem said, you're right. Go diminish yourself. The moon said, why should I diminish myself? He said, because you're the one who brought these to my attention. The sun doesn't seem to care. You're the one who cares. You diminish yourself. So the moon says, that's not fair. No. I'm not diminishing myself. I don't think it's fair. Hashem says, well, you have to. But you know what? I'll give you stars to help you out. The moon says, I'm not interested. That doesn't help me. So Hashem said, okay, I will give you the Jews to count their calendar and their mitzvot and their holidays all according to the moon. He says, I'm sorry, that doesn't do it for me. I want to go back to my place. And God said, I'm sorry, I can't do that. You know what I'm going to do? Every Rosh Chodesh, when the temple stood, I'm going to command the priests, the Kohanim, to bring a sin offering on my behalf that I diminished you. Do you know that every single Rosh Chodesh in the temple, they brought a sin offering on behalf of God that he diminished the moon? Did you know that? Now, let me ask you a question. Your husband does something that slights you. And you tell him, I'm very hurt. And he says, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry you feel that way. He said, it doesn't help me. I need you to do something. Because I can't. But every week on Monday, I'm going to say, I'm sorry. Funeral arrangements are 4 p.m. So the Rebbe has a whole sikh on this. He says it's such a it's such a unclear story what went on here. Like what was going on? So of course, like everything else, so this illuminates what it really means. Is that the moon is the giver, and the sun, I'm just opposite. The sun is the giver and the moon is the receiver. The feminine and the masculine energy. Look at the sun, it never changes. The same yesterday as it was tomorrow. It couldn't care less if there's mountains or clouds. It's just shining. You can't get my light, that's your problem. I am doing my thing. And when I say masculine energy, I don't mean men are like that and women are like this. We have masculine energy and feminine energy, and our husbands have masculine energy and feminine energy. So don't I'm not generalizing that men are like this and women are like that. So the sun, that's what the sun is. And by the way, in Kabbalistic terms, God is compared to the sun. He doesn't get changed by everything we do. He's steady. He always shines. The moon is the receiver. The moon is constantly taking light from the sun. Think about it. The moon is not a star. How does the moon shine? Why should the moon shine? It's a rock. If I shine a flashlight on a rock, doesn't matter. It could shine from today till tomorrow. The rock is not going to reflect. Why does the moon reflect? The moon has this ethereal quality. Hashem created the moon to be a receiver. It takes in, it absorbs.
Okay.
But what it gives back is
Try
this gentle, ethereal
CHA.
world that nothing else can compare to. That's what the moon is. The moon is the feminine energy. And we don't see we don't see. It's not like the moon is not the earth. They're the whole
Capital
time. We see a
C
sliver, and we see another
HAVAD.
And when is it Rosh Chodesh, the new month? When it's born. When
One
we only see the smallest sliver. Do you know that's what's happening at that time? Why do you see such a small sliver? Because it's when the moon is most closely aligned with the sun. When it seems darkest to you, it's actually
I
at
have
the strongest point with its
a 1
giver.
double exclamation marks.
the moon, and that's when we have our new month. Women are very connected to it. Our cycles are like the moon. We're never the same from day to day.
UW, capital U,
We're so
W.
connected to the moon, to that energy. We receive.
If that
but when
works.
we give back,
Then I have
it's way
another one
beyond
here.
anything.
That,
Into the relationship between Hashem and the Jewish people.
I have another one here
the
that might
Jewish
have been
people are
more.
the female.
than
Can
that
you
one.
please
They are
mute
receiving
yourself?
from Hashem.
Please mute
And when
yourself.
they give back, wow. So in that Sifra, the Rebbe says two interesting points I'm going to share, and I'm going to move on. Rebbe says, think of a poor person. Poor person says to Hashem, stop fear. Why should I get the money through the rich person? Why couldn't you just give me the same money that the rich person got? And fear is square. Give him half, and that's it. I don't have to go through him. Hashem says, what are you talking about? Who do you think gave the money to the rich person? I did. Who do you think is giving the money to you? It's going through the rich person, but it's not really. It's all straight from Hashem. The poor person says, yeah, but that doesn't feel so great. So Hashem says, I'm sorry that you feel that way, but that's the way I created the world. That there is a time that you have to feel vacant. Because if you don't feel vacant, you can never be a conduit. If I have a full cup, it cannot receive. If nothing could go in here, no matter what, you give me diamonds, I won't be able to put it in. If you don't have that quality of being able to receive from your husband, to be able to be a feminine receptacle, to be able to relax and be vulnerable to him and to his love, yes, it's true, you cannot respond. You cannot give back love. You cannot give back pleasure because you're too self-absorbed. You're not able to let yourself just relax and be an open vessel. And I want to tell you something. This is practical. I'm not just talking like esoteric. You find that you're not able to relax in the bedroom. Neither of you is supposed to be drunk according to Jewish law, but you're a sip of wine. Bring a sip of wine into your room. It's okay. You're allowed to do something that's going to relax you. You're allowed to ask your husband to massage you. You're allowed to take time to understand the physiology of a woman. A woman doesn't go like this. She needs time to warm up. Her body needs time to lubricate. We all know that. Women know that we're not men. We're just not able to get into our THLAs and go from 0 to 100 in 2 seconds. And that's fine. And going back to the communication, if you don't tell your husband that, he doesn't know. He might not know that you like to be touched like a feather, something soft. Or sometimes if he likes to be touched very firmly, he's projecting and it's touching you the way he likes to be touched. Unless you're going to say something, how is he supposed to know? He's not a mind reader. He really wants to please you. You think your husband doesn't want to please you? You know how harmful it is to his own ego that you can't receive pleasure from him? In general, if he ever has an issue, do you think it's not very, very sensitive for him? Because he's a macho, cool guy. Extremely sensitive. If something is not going well or you're upset about something in the bedroom, that's not the time to point out any one of its flaws. It's very hurtful. It has to be at a time that's productive. Your question you have to ask yourself is, do I want to build a relationship? Do I want to show love? Do I want to receive love? Or I just want to knock him down? Then keep on doing what you're doing, right? You just keep on doing it and we'll be successful. So the second example that I've used is something that I just found fascinating, so I'm going to share it with you. It's when Hashem gave us the Torah, it was the written Torah. He gave us the 10 Commandments. You all saw it in Charlton Heston book, movie, whatever. The engraved stones with 10 Commandments engraved on them. That's sort of like the Cliff Notes. But then over 40 years, Moshe gave us the written Torah. We call it the 5 books of Moses. It's the story of Genesis. It's the story of the Jews in Egypt. It's the story of before Joseph being enslaved. It's the story of the Jews in the desert. It's the story of the Jews saying goodbye to Moshe before he passes away. The story of the spies. The stories that you may have learned from the written Torah. For 40 years, Moshe teaches, it directed, Hashem dictates it, he writes it, and then he gives it to the Jews. That's what we refer to as the 5 books of Moses. Over the next 200-300 years, the rest of the written Torah is included. The stories of the prophets, it's the writings, it's the story of the Megillah of Esther. That's what generally Jews refer to as the written Torah. When you see the Torah scroll in Shul, that's the 5 books of Moses on parchment. But generally, what I just described to you is what we refer to as the written Torah. We never change a letter. It has never been changed. You can go to any synagogue in the world. Every Torah scroll has the exact same words. If one word is changed, the whole Torah scroll has to be fixed. It's like the sun. It's the giving of the Torah. Hashem is the giver. But we all know, we look into any rabbi's office, like 10,000 books on them. And that's just a fraction of the scholarship. What have we been doing for the last 3,000 years since we got the Torah? We've been receiving the Torah. We are actually learning those 5 books of Moses and the prophets and the whole written Torah and decoding it and applying it. And we have the esoteric part, which is the Kabbalah and Chassidus. And we have the halakhic part, the midrashic part, which is the stories. There's so much to analyze and decode and evolve. And Moshe gave us a code book. You can just go and say, oh, wow, this is interesting. I think it means this. No, it has to follow the guidelines he gave us to be able to interpret. But it's like a living organism. It's constantly changing. An example would be, you come to your rabbi, you say, I want to do infertility treatments. They want to use a surrogate woman. Is that allowed? They didn't have the IVF treatments in the Torah. How does the rabbi know how to interpret that? He has this passed down tradition, how to decode the laws based on precedents, how to apply it to modern day things. Are you allowed to drive an electric car in Shabbos that you don't need to do anything? Is an LED bulb the same? I'm just using examples just to show you that it's a living organism that's constantly changing. That's the giving, that's the receiving part. So the Jewish people, counterpoint to the moon, we are the receiver to God's Torah. It's constantly changing. So you start understanding what it means to be a receiver in a relationship. It's not passive. I'm not lying there like dead meat. I'm actively receiving. And I'm actively giving. And that's what happens to your husband and wife. You receive, you give. You give, receive. You're there for the other person. You're focused on the other person. So much so, the Torah says, we wash our hands before we're intimate. We wash our hands afterwards. We're totally covered. We actually, if we go to the bathroom or go into the bathroom, we wait a certain amount of time before we're actually intimate. You don't have to wait before you do foreplay, but you have to wait till you're actually intimate. If you're going to nurse a baby, try to nurse before. But if you can't help it, wait a certain amount of time after intimacy. Everything made to focus, my priority is with each other. This is what we're prioritizing. It's interesting that the Torah describes that the ideal position is the husband facing the source where he came from, down, he's facing the earth. And the woman is facing upwards, where she comes from. She was separated from her husband. And why is that the ideal? Because again, it's going back to what it's replicating, what's actually happening when the two of you are together. So I found it interesting when I was learning these things, because you can't even help that flies through your head, and it gives it like it's so, I don't know what the right word is. It's so pleasant to feel that I'm actually channeling something that's so powerful in my thoughts and in my unity with my husband. And how the Torah says you're not supposed to think about other people, right? So first of all, which woman is not happy to know that her husband is not thinking about anybody else, and that you're not thinking about anybody else? But the person you're supposed to focus on is your spouse. And if you find that you're not, you know that you have something to examine. What's going on in your relationship? If your mind is wandering and you're thinking about other things, it's much like when you're praying and suddenly you find yourself thinking about everything else. You know that you're not focused, you're not present in your marriage. it's an indicator to you, like, what's going on here? Why am I not present in my relationship? And I know that we all have times that we're extremely tired. We just had a baby. We just came back from somewhere. Our husband really wanted to be intimate, but we're like, so in general, I just want to put it out to you. In general, you're best friends. So sometimes you're there for each other. Yes, you might be tired and you'll say so. I'm really, really exhausted. And I'll be a little bit less, I'm more laid back. But you have to be able to find it within yourself to be there for your husband and vice versa. But not if you're not if you're not able to, or you don't want to, or you're angry. No, you're not supposed to just push aside any of your feelings. In general, if something makes you uncomfortable, listen to your voice. You can say, I'm not comfortable with that. There's nothing wrong with that. In general, if you ever find that you're in pain, you're not supposed to suffer through this. You know, 30 years ago, nobody knew anything about our sexual health. Today, we know a lot more. There are amazing resources. Don't think that, oh, this is the way it's supposed to be. I'm just going to get through it. When I hear a woman share that with me, it's very painful. That's not the way it's supposed to be. You might think today, oh, it's always going to be that way. Like, what am I supposed to do? Firstly, if there's something that might be medical, make an appointment. You can shop, see the difference. I have to tell you a true story that happened. I had a woman I was very close to. And one time she came to confide in me. She said, I love my husband. We're best friends. We're together for many, many years. But I lost all interest in him. And I don't know what to do about it. I feel bad, but like I have no interest in being intimate. So of course I told her that she should first go to the doctor and check out her hormones. You never know, right? And I said to her, by the way, have you been to a mikvah? So she said to me, did you ever visit a mikvah? Have you ever kept Parashat Shofar? She said to me, no. I went before my wedding, and that's the last time. So I said to her, would you consider it? We spoke a little bit about it, and she told me yes. And I said, by the way, I'm not promising you anything, but there's something really special about not being able to touch, even casually, someone you really love. It does do something to you. It's very exciting. It reminds you of the first time you were ever together. But let's see. So I taught her the laws. She went to the mikvah, and we never spoke about it again. I never had an opportunity to say, how's it going? Did things change? Many months pass, and she continued to keep mikvah. It was very beautiful. I was happy, proud of her. And she comes, she says, Chanie, we talked for a few minutes. I said, sure. So we're going on vacation next month, and I just figured it out that I'm going to be a Nida on vacation. We will not be able to be intimate. And I don't understand. What type of vacation is that going to be? So I said to her, did your ears hear what your mouth just said? She didn't even put two and two together. I said, this is music to my ears. You just came to speak to me a few months ago that you don't think you're ever going to want to be intimate with your husband again. And she started to laugh. She said, I didn't even realize. That is like unbelievable. So even if you're thinking I'm checkmated, Chanie doesn't know my situation. It's let me tell you, in Hashem's world, no one is checkmated. God is not limited. I once came out of the mikvah many years ago, and the mikvah lady gave me a blessing. Some mikvah ladies do that. You come out, they give you a blessing. And she said to me, you should have shalom bayit, which means peace in your home. So I thought to myself, oh my, does she think I know? And I said to myself right then and there, everybody needs the blessing for peace in their home. Never take that blessing for granted. And since then, I made like an unofficial resolution that every time I go to the mikvah, I'm going to pray for shalom bayit. And every time I light my candles, I'm going to ask Hashem to bless our home and to continue to be filled with peace. And it's true because you can't take things for granted. Nothing is on autopilot. You want to have a connected marriage. You want to be connected to your person through your ups and downs. We will all have ups and downs. There is no such thing as a couple that doesn't go through ups and downs. That is human life. That is life, human nature. You can always be kind and respectful, by the way. But sometimes you feel more love. Sometimes you feel less love. It's human nature. You don't throw away something unbelievable. You just ride the wave. But do you want to have that in your life? Know that Hashem doesn't have any limitations. when you go into those mikvah waters, you're returning to Hashem's womb where everything is one. It's like the ocean. You look at the ocean, you see differentiation between the fish and the water and the coral. You look at the regular land, the mountains all around you. You see trees, you see animals, you see mountains, caves, you see everything separate. But the water represents in Kabbalah, the covered world, oneness. It looks like one, even though it's not. So when you go into the mikvah, you're going back to that state that you're trying to recreate with your husband of oneness. And in that state, you cease to exist for a second because you can't live underwater. But instead of losing yourself, you find yourself connected to an ongoing energy that is unlimited. And that state of connection to Hashem, anything can happen. That's why our prayers are so powerful. You can ask that the love be reignited, that I feel connected to my husband. And of course, do something about it. Try to do something practical about it. It's not all on you. He should also be doing things. But again, I'm not talking to your husbands right now. Even though whenever I teach this, the women are like, can you do a session for the men, please? And you come out of the mikvah, I want you to visualize how you are that conduit for that light. Bring it home to your husband. Bring that energy of positivity, of possibility. And know that there is that possibility of continued love and deeper connection. And the older you get, you think, oh, well, they're older already. My parents are older. They don't go to the mikvah, they don't have the on and off. It's because our physiology changes. We need different things. We have different distractions. We don't have little kids at home. The connection that you feel only gets stronger and deeper. It could. You could also let it slide and not nurture the relationship. But a husband and wife that ever once told, I heard this from her herself, Chanie Sharfstein. I heard her tell this story. It was right after the war, she was orphaned. And in general, the Rebbe took very, very deep interest to help the orphans because he was like their surrogate father. And she wasn't married yet. She was an older girl. She tells the story. She went to the Rebbe and she said, I can't meet anybody. I go out, I can't meet a person. The Rebbe says, Chanie, you're reading too many novels. He says, you think love and romance is the way the books say. Let me tell you what love is. Love is being married to someone, and one day you wake up, you don't know where you begin and they end. So you don't know where you begin and they end. Like the story they tell of Tzaddik of Jerusalem. Him and his wife went to the doctor because her foot was hurting. And he comes in and he tells the doctor, my wife's foot is hurting up. So you might think, oh, that's so sweet, idealistic. I just want to tell you, for the young ones in the room, that marriage is meant to and does get better and better and deeper and deeper. You understand each other on a different level. Does it mean there's never ups and downs? There are. Hashem sends us all kinds of curveballs. But you are with the person you are meant to spend your life with, if that's what Hashem blesses us with. And all his strengths and all his weaknesses are custom made to what you need in this world. And like the Rebbe told Mrs. Miriam Simpson, what's her married name? Gordon. The Frierdiker Rebbe, the previous Rebbe, is the one who suggested her Shidduch to Rabbi Gordon. Olav Hashalom, they both passed away. And she was like, she thought of herself as an American, because she was. You know, she spoke English well. She was born in America. She said, I'm going to marry a guy that barely can speak English. He's like a Russian immigrant. But the previous Rebbe suggested that they meet. So out of respect for the Rebbe, she said, okay. They meet. And she really liked him. And after a few times meeting, they decided they're going to get married. They're this big Chabad family now. They have many grandchildren all over the world. So I heard this story from one of the granddaughters. And after they got engaged, the previous Rebbe, she asked the previous Rebbe if she could meet with him. And he said yes. And basically it was out of respect for the fact that he wasn't so well, so it was very hard for him to meet with people. The fact that she took him up on his suggestion, so he wanted to repay her for that. So she, at the end of the Yeshiva, she said to the Rebbe, can you please tell me what the secret to a happy marriage? Stop. And the previous Rebbe told her two things. He said to her, you can know the negative qualities of your husband, but don't focus on it. Don't focus on that. All of us know we're not changing anybody. So, yeah, you said your piece, goodbye. Stop focusing on it. Focus on the positive. And the second thing he told her is you should consult each other all the time on everything. They seem so simple, but they're so brilliant. Because we let our minds take a lot of power. And you know, when you're intimate, your mind plays a very big part in your role there. Are you 100% present in your relationship with your spouse? Are you there? Are you focusing on the positive or on the negative? Did I say the story right? Please speak up. It's her grandmother. Please correct me. Wow. I'm going to repeat that because it should be on the mic. Roma says the Friedrich told her she's focused on her own challenges or frustrations, how do you say that in English? Flaws, and her husband's good qualities. Okay. She said that they should have no secrets, but I actually read the original and it says you should consult, you should talk things over. Your mother sent me the original Yechidus. So Mrs. Miriam Gordon, her grandmother, Shalom, wrote this down. She hand wrote the Yechidus and she had it and she showed it to her family. She never let it be published. And then right before she, one of your nephews was getting married? Right. After she passed away, they could print it. But one of her, I think it's your nephew, right? They got married? Asked, can we please publish it? For our wedding, we want to give it out. And she said, okay. And then she passed away, right? Right before the wedding. So, but her words continue to inspire because I tell this story many, many times. And every time I have a granddaughter that corrects it. So I better just start carrying it around with me and just reading it straight from the letter. And the real reason I like to share it is because I don't know why, but some people have a hard time like reminding themselves is you have something negative to say. Like try not to say it at the wrong time. But if you really find you must say it, you might by the way find that if you hold yourself back a little and you start focusing on the good qualities of your spouse, you'll forget even that you had that negative to say. By the way, I'm not saying you shouldn't communicate if you're upset about something, but there's timing. Everything is timing. When you're in the bedroom with your husband, it's not the time to start pointing out every flaw he has. And I'm not kidding. I've actually heard this from women that they do that. And they themselves don't know why they're doing that. They know it's sabotaging their relationship. Would you like your husband, when you're in bed with him, to suddenly start pointing out everything he doesn't like? I mean, dead on arrival. That's not a relationship. You run. So on a very practical level, if you're looking for that one little detail to change, that's the time to whisper something nice. Because people respond, we all respond to something nice. I really feel like I want to open up for questions. Because I have a few more things to say, but I'm feeling like I'm getting
two questions that came online, right? So we'll start with those and then we'll talk.
I just want to see if I'm missing any major points that I want to review. I heard this actually from Rabbi Lipsker, and I really want to share it because I love it. And he said, and I've told this to many, many couples, scheduled intimacy is an amazing gift for a couple. Because let's say you're in the stage of life where you're very tired from babies, or you're in a stage of life where your jobs are, everybody has their own thing that's very distracting. Scheduled intimacy, you know, Sundays is a great day. I'm using an example. For some people, Friday nights is a great day. Yeah, Friday night is special to have intimacy, but it might not work for you. You might run a Chabad house every Friday night, have 100 people. By the time you get home, you're like flat on your face. So there's no, you don't have to, it's not no mitzvah that you should make yourself, kill yourself. So scheduled intimacies, you know what your schedule is like. You and your husband know that Wednesday is a very quiet day. The kids have, are sleeping over. Everybody has their own story. Put it into your schedule. It's something that you both look forward to. It's something you can be ready for. It's something you can make your room special and ready for. So I had a couple, I was once doing a couple class on their free side, and I gave them a suggestion. And they said, I don't like that. What is spontaneity? I said 6 other days. Spontaneity, go for it. And some people like to have scheduled intimacy 3 times. Every couple knows their needs. I'm not saying you should have once a week. I'm saying scheduled. Okay, you could be spontaneous as long as you tell her. It's a beautiful feature for a couple to add in because also you start looking forward to it and make sure you're rested. You could put yourself into the mood. You could do things that will you'll make sure that that day is a more pleasant day. And just making sure I didn't leave out any
No one wants.
major details. I got a question, and actually I've gotten a few times this question, so I'm sure it doesn't only apply to one person. Whatever person, and I had this actually with a woman in my community, the exact same question, is she told me that, her and her husband have a very beautiful marriage, and they've had a very beautiful intimate life. But of late, he's either not able to perform, or he's lost interest in her. She doesn't know because he's not communicating that. And I said to her, has he been to a doctor recently? And she said to me, actually not. I said, okay, I can give you some ideas, but I want to tell you, first things first is if you hear hoof beats, don't think zebras. The first thing you do is check the medical situation. A few weeks later, until today, years later, every time she meets me, she thanks me. It was literally, he was just low in a certain, I don't know if it was the, hormone or whatever. So if you hear hoof beats, do not think zebras. If this is an issue, as I mentioned before, it's a very sensitive topic for men. So be respectful and be kind, but you don't ignore it. There's a medical issue going on. So that's the first thing I would think if there's that. Then again, you also have to be honest truthfully. Is there something else going on in your marriage? Are you always angry at them? Are you disappointed? Is something going on that's not being addressed? Figure that out. I just want to point you to a resource that's unbelievable. Mikvah.org has a page of resources online, mikvah.org, yeah, of people that specialize in all areas. It could be medical, it's anything related to intimacy. So there are resources today. We're not living in the dark ages. And there's no reason for anybody to ever feel that their needs are not being met or that they don't know where to get help from. So I'm just putting that out to you. The second one is a little bit of a trickier question. A woman writes that she does not feel any attraction to her husband. And it makes intimacy extremely difficult for her. Again, my first thought when I read it is, have you ever felt attraction? Have you ever felt attraction in your marriage? When you were dating and then you got married, what were you feeling then? Only you know that answer. And even then, like I said before, we're never really checkmated. There are amazing resources that can help you build emotional intimacy in your marriage, which will lead to physical intimacy. We as women do not separate physical intimacy from emotional intimacy. This is not just a biological, connection. There is a very deep emotional connection that's going on in our brain. And that's why we have to allow ourselves to warm up and allow ourselves to start feeling vulnerable. So if this is an issue of attraction, I would say a very simple thing is sometimes hygiene is a very, very big issue. You might be concerned with, hurting your husband's feelings, but it's much better to suggest that he takes the shower and that, checks what's going on with his breath than to reject him in the bedroom. So you could be diplomatic. There are ways you could do it, but there's no way you could just ignore that and allow your marriage to deteriorate from that. So there could be many levels of why a woman isn't feeling attraction to her husband, and there are solutions. And again, look at that page on mikvah.org. It's amazing. But if in general you just feel like you've grown apart from your husband and you wish you had that connection, but you're like two ships sailing in different directions, there are a lot of things you can do to feel connected. Finding time to do things that each of you love. Remember the days when you first met and you did things that you loved together. Rediscovering all of those opportunities bring emotional closeness, which will lead to physical closeness. Do you want to ask it verbally or do you want to write it down? Okay, you could ask while I'm reading this. Go ahead. I'm listening. The husband or the wife said that? No, he says to the wife. Many.
Write it down.
So give me a second to read that. I will ask those that ask these questions. They're missing a few vital details, so I don't really understand the question. So can you send it up again? About the halachas of being intimate, I didn't understand the question because I don't know what you mean. Which halachas? The ones that I mentioned? Other ones? I don't understand. So write it down a little bit more specifically, please. Are there halachas about being? Yes, they are. Oh, on intimacy, I'm not sure actually. In general, if a woman finds that she's staining a lot and it's very hard for her to get to mikvah, she must be in consultation with someone that's an expert in this field, because a lot of times we stain and it's old blood. It would not make her any good. But she thinks that she's going to determine herself if she's neither or not. And she's going to wait till constantly 100% stops. She might be fine to go to the mikvah. It's not enough to just what you think. And I know it seems uncomfortable, but it's going to save you weeks and weeks of heartache. So get in touch with a local rabbi. A Rebbetzin can help you if you're uncomfortable. They specialize in this. They specialize in being able to say, you can go to the mikvah. This is old blood. This is brown. It depends what the shade is. I can't answer that question, but I could tell you that a lot of women needlessly keep on pushing off mikvah because they don't want to ask someone that would know if their colors are right. And sometimes certain birth controls don't work well for someone because it does create so many problems. But the first thing I would tell you is to first speak to a knowledgeable Rav. You have amazing Rabbanim here, right here in California. Rabbi Schusterman, Rabbi Kesselman, and you have unbelievable Rabbanim that really are made to help women be able to achieve Tahara. A chassan and kala, a bride and groom, they're growing up in a religious home where they're not intimate before they get married, etc., really should not have sexual discussions before they get married. He should learn with his chassan teacher. She should learn with her kala teacher. It might sound a little primitive, but it's so pure, because the kala teachers and the chassan teachers are preparing them and also recognizing certain red flags, maybe. A lot of times today, almost all the kala teachers and the chassan teachers will speak to each other, make sure that they're teaching the same thing. Say, well, I do think that you might have a problem, that there are different pages, or they have different histories, or they need a little bit more intervention to support a healthy marriage. In that case, it would be appropriate for them to have a conversation about it. I would advise it with a third party, someone that could help moderate and point them for assistance, for help, like premarital counseling. I myself have sent couples because it became apparent when I was learning with the girl that it would blow up in their faces unless she dealt with certain issues before they got married. And it's unfair to the groom, it's unfair to her to like throw them in the deep end without a life jacket. So that's my answer to a chassan and challah when it would be appropriate. But under other circumstances, it's just exciting. You don't know what you're doing. Go there once, you will figure it out, but you don't have to suffer. You could have someone in your life that gives you guidance, and you can ask questions. If you realize that things are difficult, there's people, you don't have to wait a year to figure it out. You could right away go for help. And Shana or Shaina, the first year of marriage could have a lot of ups and downs, but there's people that love you, support you, and are rooting for you to be successful. Why do Jews celebrate when there's a chuppah? Whether we know the chassan or kala, we're all celebrating because it's another golden link in our golden chain that goes all the way back, Sarah and Abraham, to the first Jewish home. It's unbelievable. Every single Jew alive today here, every single one of you, no matter what your background, had a great grandmother, hopefully a grandmother and a mother, but even not. Within 5 generations, someone that went to mikvah. The chain of assimilation breaks if nobody reclaims it. So every one of you just tightens that golden link way into the future so that your children and grandchildren are still torch-bearers of our amazing, amazing heritage. Good question.
You don't have to ask.
Right. You know, in the olden days, women used to wear bloomers. You know what bloomers are? Loose underwear. So there was much more halacha around that your sheets should be white, your nightgown should be white, because it was very likely that you'll leave and it won't end up on your underwear. But if you're wearing tight-fitting white underwear, like we all do, we don't wear bloomers, then it's very unlikely that it's almost impossible for you to stain and it should show up somewhere else. So that's why today, when I was taught you wear white underwear, white sheets, white night. But now everybody's like splitting hairs. What's the actual halacha? The halacha is that what's closest to your body should be white. And we do have a minhag that we also have white sheets. Some people have a family custom that they got it from their mothers that they wear white nightgowns. Nightgowns. But you're asking what's halacha, so I'm telling you. But many women, not many, but some women sleep without underwear. So if you're sleeping without underwear, yes, you need white sheets. You understand? So there's a logic behind the system. Are there any other questions that didn't make its way up here? Okay, great. Is there anything, Verla, you want to come up next to me and you can ask these questions directly if you think I didn't cover? Is there something else I didn't cover? Yeah. That's okay. Thank you. Excellent question. By the way, I just make a general comment that most of the things I share are from the hashkafa of a Chabad of Chabad. If you learned it differently with your college teacher, you come from a different hashkafa. That's okay. Speak to your rabbi or your college teacher. Don't say, oh my God, I did it all wrong. There are different things that are taught differently in different communities. The basic laws are the same. The meaning behind it is the same. But if you heard a detail from me and said, that's not what my college teacher told me, don't get hysterical. Pull her up. It just might be a different. I am here today sharing the Chabad of the way we keep the halachas. Okay. Excellent question. I'm going to read it in a second. Okay. First question. If a woman doesn't have a regular period, how can the health, the excitement, and the holiness. You know, we always discuss that, wow, 12 days off, 12 days, 14 or 16 days on. Yes, if a person doesn't have a regular period, they lose the benefits of abstinence, makes the heart grow fonder. Right? You don't touch someone. Today in America, it's actually a standard treatment of sex therapists that if a couple's having problems with physical intimacy, they tell them to not touch each other for 12 days. And then you'll see suddenly you reawaken those nerve endings. You get in touch. By the way, in general, women, we need to be able to get in touch with ourselves. We live in a very masculine world. We sometimes lose that feminine energy. You need to be able to be vulnerable enough and allow yourself to feel yourself. And then you could be there for your husband and with your husband fully. So the question of that, if you don't have your period, so you don't have this on and off, and again, it applies to every menopausal woman. The reason the Torah gave us the mitzvahs is not, we don't know the reason. This happens to be a benefit that many women say they have. But it's not the reason. The reason is because Hashem told us. Thank you. So there's no way that Hashem gave us a mitzvah and it's there to hurt us. Or it's there like, oh, it doesn't apply. The fact that we are different physiologically when we get older, we have different hormones. If you don't get your period every month, if you're pregnant, if you're nursing, you already have different hormones rushing through you. So your dynamics are already different. And speak to women one-on-one, you'll see this is true. So a couple that's older and doesn't have this natural built-in on again, off again, has built in a rhythm. They're permitted to be with each other more often. And they built in a very strong rhythm if they're in a strong marriage of emotional and physical intimacy. And if they didn't, like we said before, it's never too late to rebuild things. You can't say like, so suddenly, it's too old. It's already 20 years. It's been like this already for years. Try something. Do something different. So I would say for a woman that's not getting her regular period, the scheduled intimacy is an amazing tip. Doing things together that focus just on you two, on something you love about each other, building up your ability to tell each other what feels good. It's not the same thing that when you were 20. Things change all the time. There has to be an opportunity for each of you to share that with each other. The second question is a little trickier, is I mean, it's not tricky, and I'm going to see what we can come up here, is practical, actionable tips to build emotional intimacy. Some people are naturally good at this, but every one of us can learn different ways. And I think the short answer to that is pay attention and be present. Let me tell you something. If the two of you are sitting at breakfast and he's on his phone and you're on your phone, there's no emotional intimacy happening. Unless you're texting each other, which would be pretty fun. You know, to your husband from a secret admirer that's sitting right across from you.
If you'd like to chat, please take the conversations outside and take food and enjoy. Just if you're in here, if we can please pay attention and so that we can all hear.
So emotional intimacy is those little things that we always hear about. You know how like when you pack a big lunch and you put the lunch, you know. It's the things that you think sound cheesy, but when it's from your husband, it just brings a smile to your face. You could do that for him. You could ask him once, what does bring a smile to your face? You might be shocked at his answer. And then you have like a list of what things you can do. But take a little effort. And it may sound like, corny to you, but it means the world to your husband. Just like it would mean the world to you. If you opened up something when he left the house and you saw that he left you a note. If he has flowers dropped off middle of the day, just because with a beautiful little note. If he says, I can't wait to see you tonight. You're thinking about that all day. What did he do? He just said 3 words. So you have to do the same thing. It doesn't mean that what makes you feel good will make him feel good, but ask him. Say, what are the things that would bring a smile to your face? Change the dynamic in your marriage. Emotional intimacy means that I am thinking about you. How good does it feel for you to know that your husband is thinking about you? How warm in your heart do you feel when you know that your husband's thinking about you? So reverse that. That's how he feels when he knows you're thinking about him. And that's the short answer about building emotional intimacy. If anybody has anything they want to answer, there'll be a chance for that too. Mitzvah night is a beautiful time for a husband to show appreciation. And remember I said before, the women are like, can you speak to the men? The one thing I like to tell men is, your wife just sat in a bath, scrubbed herself till she's like raw. But at least you can take a shower. And the women always say to me, and then of course the women are like, my husband's spotless. That's never a problem. So again, the wrong time is when you come home from the mikvah and your husband is like watching a ball game straight in. I can't believe it. It has to be something that was discussed when tempers are not clearing. Mikvah night is very emotional for me. I'm just using an example. It's very emotional for me. And I think about it a lot. And it's a lot of pressure also, because we couldn't wait to be together. And now for some people, they get very anxious. How can we make it special? When your husband knows that you're actually excited to be with them and you're putting it out to him, it changes the dynamic. So again, I don't know your husband, so I don't know what his reaction will be. But we have a bini yetera. We have a extra level of understanding how to get through to our husbands. So figure it out with options. What would make mikvah night special? Tell me what would make special for you. You could tell your husband. He says, well, just the fact that we haven't been together too. So that's a nice thing. But for me, it would be special if you somehow, put the kids to bed and prepare dinner. We can have dinner together. Or if you pick me up from the mikvah and take me out first. Everybody has their own little things that make them feel special. And your husband is not, I hear this from a million guys, they all nod every time I say this. They are not mind readers. We get disappointed because we assume that they know everything. They don't know. They don't know how you feel. They think your bodies are like their bodies. So they might treat your bodies like their bodies. And then you're very disappointed. And then he's very disappointed. He thinks, how come she didn't climax when I went into her? 80 to 90% of women do not climax just from the husband entering them. They need stimulation on their clitoris. So how does your husband know that if you don't ever tell him? So all these things are not in the moment. The only thing you can do in the moment is you can give guidance. You can say, oh, that really feels good. Oh, I would like to show you a few things. And then saying, you could do the same thing to me. Tell me what feels good. What happens between you and your husband when we say that we speak in refined terms, that we don't speak, that doesn't mean that you and your husband never communicate about your intimacy. Because if you don't, how is he supposed to know? How is he supposed to know how to please you? It's a mitzvah in the Torah for him to please you. Where is he supposed to find out that information exactly? Yeah, maybe. But again, it's hypothetical to him. Even couples that have had experience before, they might not have had the best experiences. It's not like I live in a very secular neighborhood. So when I first started teaching, I would teach people laws. And I thought, well, I'm a young girl. What am I going to tell people? They know more about it than I do. But then after a few years and coming closer and learning and helping people through different things, I realized what the Torah has to say about intimacy is it's a tragedy if we don't share it with every single Jewish person. Because I never met a person that doesn't want to have a connected relationship, that doesn't want their intimacy to be more than just I had the time. I've never met a woman that doesn't want to have an ideal relationship, if she could. So we have a lot to offer from the Torah perspective. All right, girls, I think that's a wrap.
Wow.
Enjoy. Happy marriages. From your happy marriage, a happy home, from a happy home to a happy, a safe world. And only tremendous profits should come to your home and to the whole world through our observance of this very, very fundamental foundational mitzvah. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Krasniansky. Oh, great. Want to present this picture of Rebbetzin Chanie. Thank you. Thank you. Wow. Wow. Not very correct, like you're not gonna say. Thank you so much.
Sarah, fire. But if I could ban someone.
Fire. Say my name.